Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to another weekend story. And this time I'm going to read a story by one of my favorite writers, whom I have been reading since my childhood and I still continue to read him. He's popularly perceived as a children's writer, but he's not only a children's writer, he writes for adults as well. So, the writer's name, some of you would have guessed by now, is Ruskin Bond. Yes, so Uncle Ruskin recently celebrated his 86th birthday and he continues to write. He's a very prolific writer, he's a very fertile writer, and he continues to read out his stories these days on All India Radio as well. So I sketched this picture of his during his 86th birthday as a tribute to him. The book that I'm going to read for you today is The Tree Lover by Ruskin Bond. And this book has a beautiful bookmark as well, which has been done up by Nishant Pant of HD Foundation Class 3. Right. So let's read the book. And you will learn a lot of names of plants, trees, birds. It brings you close to nature. So you see, there's this old gentleman who's sitting over here. So we'll get to know in a due course of time who he is. So chapter 1. I was never able to get over the feeling that plants and trees loved grandfather with as much tenderness as he loved them. I was sitting beside him on the veranda steps one morning when I noticed the tendril of a creeping vine that was trailing near my feet. As we sat there in the soft sunshine of a North Indian winter, I saw that the tendril was moving very slowly away from me and towards grandfather. 20 minutes later, it had crossed the veranda and was touching grandfather's feet. There's probably a scientific explanation for the plant's behavior, something to do with light and warmth. But I like to think that it moved that way simply because it was fond of grandfather. One felt like drawing close to him. Sometimes when I sat alone beneath a tree, I would feel a little lonely or lost. But as soon as grandfather joined me, the garden would become a happy place, the tree itself more friendly. See, such beautiful illustrations in the book. Chapter 2. Grandfather had served many years in the Indian Forest Service, and so it was natural that he should know and understand and like trees. On his retirement from the service, he had built a bungalow on the outskirts of Dehra, planting trees all around it, limes, mangoes, oranges and guavas. Also eucalyptus, jacaranda and the Persian lilac. In the fertile Doon Valley, plants and trees grew tall and strong. There were other trees in the compound before the house was built, including an old peepal tree, which had forced its way through the walls of an abandoned outhouse, knocking the bricks down with its vigorous growth. Peepal trees are great show-offs. Even when there is no breeze, their broad-chested, slim-waisted leaves will spin like tops, determined to attract your attention and invite you into the shade. Grandmother had wanted the peepal tree cut down, but grandfather had said, "Let it be. We can always build another outhouse." The gardener, Dukhi was a Hindu, was pleased that we allowed the tree to live. Peepal trees are sacred to Hindus, and some people believe that ghosts live in the branches. If we cut the tree down, wouldn't the ghosts go away? I asked. I don't know, said grandfather. Perhaps they might come into the house. Dukhi wouldn't walk under the tree at night. He said that once, when he was young, he had wandered beneath a peepal tree late at night, and that something heavy had fallen with a thud on his shoulders. Since then, he had always walked with a slight stoop, he explained. Nonsense, said grandmother, who didn't believe in ghosts. He got his stoop from squatting on his haunches year after year, weeding with that tiny spade of his. I never saw any ghosts in our peepal tree. There are peepal trees all over India, and people sometimes leave offerings of milk and flowers beneath them to keep the spirits happy. But since no one left any offerings under our tree, I expect the ghosts left in disgust to look for peepal trees where there was both board and lodging. Grandfather was about 60, a lean, active man who still rode his bicycle at great speed. He had stopped climbing trees only a year ago, when he had got to the top of the jackfruit tree and had been unable to come down again. That is when he left climbing trees. We had to fetch a ladder for him. Grandfather bathed quite often, but got back into his gardening clothes immediately after the bath. During meals, ladybirds or caterpillars would sometimes walk off his shirt sleeves and wander about on the tablecloth. And this always annoyed grandmother. She grumbled at grandfather a lot, but he didn't mind because he knew she loved him. My favorite tree was the banyan, which grew behind the house. Its spreading branches, which hung to the ground and took root again, formed a number of twisting passageways. The tree was older than the house, older than my grandparents. I could hide in its branches behind a screen of thick green leaves and spy on the world below. So this is the banyan tree he's talking about, and this was the peepal tree that he was talking about. So you see, peepal has broad leaves and the banyan tree has a lot of creepers over here. The banyan tree was a world in itself, populated with small animals and large insects. While the leaves were still pink and tender, they would be visited by the delicate map butterfly who left her eggs in their care. The honey on the leaves, a sweet, sticky smear, also attracted the little striped squirrels, who soon grew used to having me in the tree and became quite bold, accepting gram from my hand. At night, the tree was visited by the hawk cuckoo. Its shrill, nagging cry kept us awake on hot summer nights. Indians call the bird Paus Allah, which means rain is coming. But according to grandfather, when the bird was in full cry, it seemed to be shouting, oh dear, how very hot it's getting. We feel it, we feel it, we feel it. That's where we'll take a pause, and then in the next video we'll continue with the rest of the story. Thank you.